What a day, what a day. So the Department of Justice is apparently talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, or Ghislaine, or Guyleen. I don't actually know how her name is supposed to be pronounced. I hear my friend TJ calling her Ghislaine all the time, and that's the name I prefer, honestly. Out of all the names I've heard for Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine has to be my personal top favorite. So she's Ghislaine until I find out specifically different. Hola. Hola, ¿cómo estás? How's heat treating you? I, for one, am literally on fire. Otello, if you can believe it, okay? It's actually not that bad right this second. I mean, it's 90 degrees, which is not that bad for down here in like late July. Normally, late July, I mean, the last couple of weeks, it's been 95, 96, 94, 93. So I think if I had to guess, I would say between 88 and 89. Maybe 90 if you're right out in the sun. And honestly, sitting in the shade like I am right now, there's not much of a breeze, but it's honestly not bad right now. It's honestly pretty comfortable. Now, I'm sure once the sun comes out and the sunbeams start hitting me and the like convective heating or whatever comes through, it's going to be a different story. And it looks like there might be a storm cloud rolling through as well, you know. But who the fuck is Alarian? Oh, okay. Talk to Ed. Great. Awesome. Sorry. At first I was like, who the fuck is that? I don't got no mod named Alarian. Beautiful weather over there. Big hug. Yeah, no, it is really nice weather over here for being the deep south in the middle of summer. Oh no. I have fucked up my J. Oh no. What have I done? What have I done? $97. That really fucking sucks. Especially if you're in an area that's got high humidity, because you basically have to have air conditioning to knock enough of the humidity out of the air for your body's respiratory system to even work correctly. So if you're in an area where it's 97 degrees and above 60% humidity and you don't have AC, man, you are in some of the fucking most extreme temperature conditions that Americans have to face, honestly. It's about the worst it gets. By the way, there's 89 people watching right now. If half of you guys upvoted right this second, we would have 44 likes just like that, instantly. Or maybe 45. It just depends on which way it stacks out. But either way, you should hit that like button, because every single time you hit that like button is another chance to increase the quality of your viewing pleasure by an order of magnitude, by increasing the amount of people interacting in the chat. So please, hit the like button. HVAC guy is here now. Well, at least you know you got relief coming. I mean, that's the only fucking saving grace you got when your AC is out and it's real fucking hot and it's real fucking humid. Really, the only relief you can seek out is getting an HVAC professional. And it is kind of like, I don't know about you, but I always feel like the house gets cooler as soon as the fucking HVAC dude steps through the door. The second he steps over that threshold, it's like the temperature in the house reduces by like 5 degrees. And with every click of the wrench, it's like it gets half a centigrade cooler, you know? Do something with your life? I've done amazing things with my life. Why don't you ask me what I've done with my life rather than assuming that I haven't done anything with my life? or telling me that I need to do something with my life. You realize I'll be 27 years old next month? I have done a shit ton in that 27 years, especially over the last 10 years. What's up, Lynn? What's up? What's up? Jesus loves you. Well, I appreciate the sentiment. That has long since given up caring about the people and has long since given up being about the message of Christ. And so really, if you want to impress me, don't tell me that Jesus loves you. Fix the things in your church that make your church look so anti-Christian. Because I like your Jesus. Oh, man, I love your Jesus. It is your Christians I have a problem with. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight. Hey, daytime stream. It is really the way it goes, isn't it? You know, these daytime streams are very often more intimate environments. I don't know what causes it or anything like that, but sometimes I think the nighttime streams, they can go either way. But it's been a while since I've been able to do one of these daytime streams. Got all the things I needed to do done already, except for feeding and watering, but I don't do that till later anyway. So I figured I'd do a daytime stream. How's the Sonic 2 comics going? Pretty good. I don't know if you heard, but now it's a commercially viable property and we're starting to actually make real money off of it. So, you know, with my self-improvement, you know, has come an abundance of other boons as well. No, honestly, I really don't understand where the Christian jokes come from when it comes to me. I would understand if I looked like Christian, but I don't. I would understand if I talked like Christian, but I don't. I would understand if I had a horrible fashion sense like Christian, but I don't. I really do not get the comparison. Could you give us some workout tips? Look at my fat ass and really tell me if I need to be giving anybody workout or diet or exercise tips, my friend. Stay away from kids. You guys are fucking retarded. You guys realize that trans people are far more likely to have been victims of childhood sexual abuse than to commit childhood sexual abuse? You guys realize we are way more likely to be on the victimhood side of that train than we are to be on the perpetrating side? This little myth that you guys keep repeating and like parroting inside your own little communities, your own little echo chambers, it's an idea that really doesn't pass muster anywhere outside of those communities, because people who did not have the last 5 years of their life dominated by nothing but conservative media understand that drag queens reading at some library somewhere is not some predator activity. It's not some grooming activity. Anybody that isn't implicated in your weird little cult understands that this is pretty fucking bog standard, normal human behavior, cultural interaction, cultural exchange. And it is no different than someone hosting a romantic play at a school. These are our children. We simply don't want that. I have children too, so what now? I have kids. I have a son. I want him to be able to read queer literature when he goes to the library. So which of us is right? Which of us gets to be right on this issue? I have a son. I want him to be able to read queer literature when he goes to the library someday. I want him to be able to read straight literature too. I want him to be able to read whatever literature he can get his grubby little hands on. And they will be grubby because we live on a farm, so that's not me being mean before anyone thinks about it. There's no love like Christian hate? 100%. No love like Christian hate. Dude, you want to see just how nasty and disgusting a person can get? Man, ask a Christian to defend their church. Ask a Christian to not be bigoted for 5 minutes. Challenge level, impossible. I'm going to go ahead and turn on idiot mode so that we can read the chat, because right now it's just going by way too quickly. There we go. Yay! Yeah. So feel free to get rid of all the fucking retards who have been trying to like just troll in here and not add to the conversation. Anybody that wants to actually talk about the topic at hand, hey, leave them. I don't care how fucking trolling they're being. But if somebody is just literally like being a bullshit artist in here, if somebody's literally just shitting up the stream, then please, yes, get rid of their ass. Also, there's 297 people. If half of you guys liked right now, that would be almost 150 likes instantly. So please hit that button. It really does help. And if you want to make absolutely sure that your message gets read, consider sending a super chat. It really does help. It's the best and most effective way to support the channel. It's the best and most effective way to show that you like what we're doing here. And it's the best and most effective way to make sure that your message gets read. I do read every single one, as long as it doesn't violate terms of service. Calling you a predator while defending their orange blimp with the VIP island pass? Well, exactly. I mean, it's just going to become worse and worse now, Otello. I mean, the rhetoric is really going to have to ramp up because people like me that have been pointing out the fact that Donald Trump is a fucking predator and have been doing it for a long time are not convenient to the narrative right now. Dude, if you're one of the people in MAGA, which, by the way, Trump has lost, 2 or 3 points of support among his like diehard fan base, which is not a lot, but it is worth noting, right? Over the Epstein allegations and the fact that he is now, like, everybody knows he's in that list. Nobody knows to what degree or in what context, but we all know he's on there. We all know he was on those planes. We all know he was visiting Pedo Island. Like I said, to what degree and what context and at whose behest, we don't really know all those details. But that he was on there, that is just a matter of public record at this point. That he was there, he was. We know he was. There's no way he wasn't. And so they're going to be looking for anybody, right? Those of the MAGA movement who are uncritically supporting Trump through his allegations of being a literal pedophile, they are going to start calling anyone who disagrees with them a fucking pedophile. They are going to completely mute. They're going to completely mute the fucking meaning of that word. And they're going to make it more difficult for people like me who were victims of childhood sexual abuse. They're going to make it more difficult for cases like that to be prosecuted and taken seriously. People like that cheapen the meaning of words like that are used to describe the worst and scummiest people around us. Has Alchemist Oil gone dark? Yeah, as far as I know, Alchemist Oil has completely gone dark. I haven't heard shit from him. I sent him a message a while back basically saying, Alchemist, you need to shut the fuck up with all this, like, I lost, crying and bitching and moaning. You did better in that debate. You were more entertaining in that debate than you've been in any other fucking piece of content you've ever made. I told him that was your best appearance. I've watched almost all of your content because as obsessive as you are about hating on Paul, I'm as obsessive about you guys as you guys are about him. And I watch all of your fucking content. I know your takes. I know how fucking boring and unlistenable you are, except for the fact that you're talking about someone I'm, like, fascinated by, right? If it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the fact, right, which is why I haven't watched any of his videos that I say I watch all of his content, but I watch all of his Paul-related content or DFF-related content. But his best appearance by far was on my channel, and I told him so in that message, and I said, you need to really fucking just, like, take the W. Like, if you won, let it lie. Leave it where you found it. If that's the fucking actual situation, if you feel like you walked away from that with a victory, then you should have made one long Reddit post being like, everybody's going to have their own opinion of it, but I feel like I did really well. I feel like Paul didn't. Here's the reasons why. I'm glad Phoebe let me host it on her channel. I'm glad she invited me on. Thanks to everybody who participated. And yeah, that would have been noble. I would have, like, actually gained some respect for Alchemist Oil if he'd done something like that, but he didn't. No, he literally went on a fucking response campaign. He spent the next 2 weeks after that running defense for his own fucking fucked up positions and calling Paul just shy of a Holocaust denier and calling Paul all kinds of bigot and all this bullshit. And now he's backed off. Now he's not worried about it anymore. Now he's not made any content on his channel, as far as I know. He's not made any new videos. He's not made any Reddit posts in a while, as far as I can see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've missed something. But yeah, seems like he's gone dark. I don't know if he's gone completely dark. But anyway, how's it going, big guy? I'm not a guy, but I am pretty big. And it's going really well. I've had a trans friend, and they and they believe that this is a mental health issue. Do you agree with that, since you said you have been sexually abused and most trans people have been? I don't think that our sexual abuse is why we are trans. I think that the fact that we're trans and some of the like behavioral markers that come along with that, I think lend us to being abused more often. And that, like, the science just bears that out, right? In kids in whom that identity is way more suppressed or something like that, it's not as common. But like, I don't think it's like, as far as the chicken and egg question comes to that particular question, I think that the fact that somebody is trans makes them more likely to be sexually assaulted, and for a bunch of different reasons. And the reasons differ depending on the age group, and honestly can depend on what racial group the person belongs to, like what their like class position in society is. There's a lot that goes into it. Very intersectional issue. Anyway, this dude needs help. Well, number one, I'm not a dude, and number two, everybody needs help. I mean, to be sane in an insane society is no mark of rationality, my friend. So you calling me insane? I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad, because if this world makes sense to some of you, I question your judgment. And if you question my judgment because I question this world's judgment and the judgment of the elites who make the decisions that affect all of us through the companies they own and control and the politicians that they own and control, if me being utterly critical of that sort of thing, if me being kind of a rebel, if me being unlike people you've met before makes me insane, I'll take that as a compliment. So if you were to compete in jiu-jitsu, would you challenge yourself and grapple other men, or would you grapple with women so you have higher chances of getting that gold medal? I would probably try to find a co-ed gym, honestly. I'd probably be fighting both. I think that there's a value in allowing like cis women and AFAB people in general to compete against cis men, trans women, and AMAB people in general. I think there's a positive human benefit to that, as long as everyone is doing it consensually, right? As long as everybody knows the risks, as long as everybody knows, right? Because I don't get it. Why is it okay if two people have a penis, then two people can fight, whether one of them's fucking 5'2" and the other's 6'4"? Doesn't matter, as long as they both have a penis. But for some reason, if one of them has a vagina in that equation, then suddenly it's like some giant outmatch. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like we still have weight classes, and yeah, there might be very few men who would like weigh little enough and be short enough to compete against women if like that sort of thing was introduced, right? But ultimately, I think it would have a positive effect on humanity. Not least of all by making sports more fucking interesting. By the way, make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance for the stream to go even further and to find even more people to engage in the chat, which makes our fucking streams, our chats, and everything else way more interesting. Yeah, all of you, like, you guys are just falling back on all the old standbys. It's called genetic difference because men are biologically stronger than women. But you didn't even answer the crux of my argument, which is, why is it okay, just because two people have penises, for them to fight, right? If I ask, okay, do you think that it should be like legal for a 5'2" dude to fight a 6'4" dude if they want to? I know that no competition would be organized that pits two dudes of that vast a size difference together necessarily, right? Unless you're WWE, and then I guess, you know, but whatever, that's a soap opera. It's hardly sports at all. Like, I understand that that's an unrealistic competition, but when I ask people about it, they're okay with it. When I ask people about it, they're like, yeah, I mean, if two people want to fight, I think they should be able to fight. But when I say, okay, so why can't a man fight a woman? If you're saying that trans women are men, which I disagree with, but whatever, if we're going to let you slip that weird little bigoted premise by, why can't they compete? Because your feelings will be hurt by it? Because you need the division of the sexes for you to feel better about yourself. That's the real answer. Because somewhere in your mind, you have connected the sexist idea that men are always stronger than women and always better than women at this, that, and the other thing. You have connected that to your self-worth. And so the fact that you're a man makes you feel really powerful and really like makes you feel like you've got one over on 50% of humanity just off the fucking bat. And the reason why you have to have weird little shallow things like that to give you reassurance in your personality is because you haven't grown one of your own. You haven't grown an independent personality that would allow you to find other things to occupy your time and to occupy your idealism. You have more guts than I do, being able to handle so much negativity. The patience you have is amazing. I really don't think it's that amazing, but I do appreciate the sentiment a lot, and I thank you for that. The reason why I do it, though, is because ultimately this is outreach. You know, I might be the first trans person that some of these people have ever heard elucidate their arguments. And I'm not a very fucking conventional trans woman. I'm willing to admit that, you know. Most trans women voice train. I don't. A lot of trans women wear heavy makeup. I don't. A lot of trans women at least wear light makeup, and I don't do that either, you know? Like, outside of that, I don't think I'm atypical. Most trans ladies I've met are leftists, and I'm a hardcore lefty, you know? But if there is one distinguishing factor, you know, it's that I perhaps have more patience for talking to people on the right than a lot of trans people do, you know? You notice I haven't banned anybody or asked anybody to be banned merely because they've disagreed with me, you know? It's worth noting. A pound of lead hits harder than a pound of feathers. That is true. That is true, but that's a matter of density, right? I mean, a pound of feathers compressed into the size of a comparable amount of lead, right? They would hurt just as bad, right? If you could compress them down to that size and get them to stay that way, you know, impregnating it with resin or whatever to. Do we wear heavy makeup? I think it's survivor bias online. Oof. That might be true. That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that, but you might be 100% right. Although, I will say, even a lot of the trans ladies I've met in real life, most of the trans ladies I've met at least wore some kind of little bit of makeup. But I'm not saying that that's like a distinguishing thing for trans women, because a lot of women do in general. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of cis women do. A lot of, like, variably feminine people do, with and without vaginas of all kinds. You know, it's not like a marker for us. But I think the fact that I don't occasionally, like, sets me apart in some people's minds. I remember Trump, a 79-year-old out-of-shape man, told Riley Gaines that he could beat her in any race just because he's a man. Yeah, dude, and it's fucking, like, that sort of thing boggles my fucking mind. And I know that sort of mentality is the same kind of mentality that we're, like, running up against in these arguments that we're having about this right now. In here with these folks, we're running up against the same kind of argument. Oh, because I'm a man, I can beat any woman at any competition, anytime, for any reason. I've just got an automatic advantage over them, and we're better than them, and we're stronger than them, and all that other shit, right? That's the argument I hear coming out of these men that have been defending this position. But the truth of it is, there have been plenty of fucking times in sports history when women have won competitions against men. And I've seen it happen in my own life more than enough times to know that it is a very real thing that occasionally happens. It's not this weird fucking, like, uber outmatched thing where there's just no chance of any fucking fairness in that competition. And I would fucking also point out the fact that we don't seem to care a whole lot about differences in body mass and things like that, except when it comes to the matter of trans people. For example, we don't exclude anybody for being too tall. We don't exclude anybody from the NBA for being too tall. But we do want to exclude certain people from sports because they're trans. Seems fucking illegitimate to me. Seems pretty bullshit. Let me see here. A 79-year-old man has less testosterone than younger women, of course. The guy will most likely lose. Well, yeah, but at least you admit it, Gonzo. At least you're not in here defending the idea that he could do that merely on the basis of him being a man. You do recognize, Gonzo, that there are women who can beat the average man at any given competition, right? Now, there are also men who can beat the average woman and probably most elite, or not elite, but most like athlete level, kind of like not just hobbyist level, but there's I understand that when it comes to high level power athletes in the world of cis men, there's probably many of them that could beat any given female opponent from the women's sports world of the whatever the comparable, you know. There are all kinds of outliers, is my point. How come USA women's soccer lost to 12-year-old boys? Because you know what it is? Can I just be honest with you, Sean Smith? You know what it was? You know what it is? Americans are bad at soccer. It's not our sport. It's not our kind of football, man. You know, that's why. Because Americans are just bad at soccer. So it was a doomed competition from the start. Did they buy it? The number of trans athletes in sports can be counted on hand. It's a ridiculous scare. Yeah, and I never remember to bring that up when it's most pertinent, but you're right. We're talking about a very fucking tiny minority of people, and yet everybody's worried that if we allow trans people to be openly involved in the sports of the gender that they identify with, that suddenly there's going to be a fucking giant exodus of people from one gender sport to the other because they just get sick of fucking losing all the time. The thing is, people that are fucking good enough at sports to be on any kind of team that pays them to be on that team are fucking not worried about that. They know they're talented. They're clearly capable of competing at their level in their sport, or they wouldn't be at that level. As for everybody else, I guarantee you nobody's going to go through with that for long. Nobody that is not genuinely trans is going to go through the long and arduous process of transition, because you realize that a lot of sports teams that do allow trans competitors require you to be on, if you're an AFAB competitor joining the men's team because you're a trans man, they require you to be on your testosterone for at least 2 years before you start. And if you're a trans woman who's joining a woman's team, they require you to be on your estrogen and HRT for at least 2 years before you're able to join. These sorts of standards are universal among sports teams that allow trans membership. And so the idea that people are just going to change everything about their fucking life and everything, they're going to change what they're called, they're going to change how their parents and family know them, they're going to change everything about their lives because they want to win at a fucking sports ball game more often. It sounds like a lot of effort for somebody who's already putting in a lot of effort athletically. By the way, if you want to make absolutely sure that your message gets read, consider sending a super chat. It is a great way to not only financially support the channel and its growth, but also to tell YouTube to send more people here. And, I read every single one as long as it doesn't violate TOS. So it's a great way to make sure your message gets read. Glitch Dash said sup. Oh, he did? What's up? What's up, Glitch Dash? Not only does HRT bring performance to the desired gender standards, but HRT earlier in life would mean that they don't have those advantages. 100%. Yep, the Dutch approach makes sure that this isn't even an issue. But then you bring up the Dutch approach and everybody gets scared because it involves puberty blockers. Nobody wants to hear about the fact that the occasional trans kid might benefit from puberty blockers because nobody wants to imagine their kid going through transition. Because nobody fucking likes trans people right now. I mean, not nobody, but I'm saying that there is like a broad, and I don't know if it's growing or if it's in stasis or what, but there does seem to be like an increase of transphobia over the last 5 years that I don't remember it existing when I came out as trans. And for like the first year and a half, I would say, really, I feel like it's been growing. In 2023 is when I first started to feel like it was really ramping up. And slowly but surely, it just seems like the rhetoric has gotten worse and worse. Let me see here. Jesus is king and he loves you. I hope you find the help you need. Well, I don't need any more help than any other human being on the planet does, but I appreciate your concern. And I also appreciate the $4.99. Thank you for sending a super chat. Puberty blockers are immoral unless medically necessary? You mean like for a trans person that needs to not go through the wrong puberty and needs to be given the chance to make the decision for themselves if they're going to like go through the puberty that would be assigned to them at birth or through a puberty that matches something that they actually feel more like? Great, then we're in agreement. It seems like trans get more love and awareness than straight guys. Bro, the world's most popular actors are all straight guys. Donald Trump is a straight guy. All of the dudes that are fawned over by these bored housewives watching like Dr. Oz and shit, they're all straight guys. What do you mean? Like, I thought about the premise for a second and I was like, well, there's certainly a lot of pro-queer advocacy, you know, it's more visible than it used to be. But then I got to thinking about it, I was like, man, I can't think of a single trans celebrity that's well loved by everybody. But everybody loves Keanu Reeves. Straight guy. Like, not everybody, but like half the country loves weird Republican mess Donald Trump. Straight guy. So how much more love do you need, you know? You got the presidency. What else do you want? Puberty blockers given to cis kids, just fine. Blockers given to trans kids, immoral. Make it make sense. I can't make it make sense. The kind of doublethink and hypocrisy you come across and you bump into whenever you argue regularly with deeply fucking far-right conservatives. And I'm not saying that to insult them. I'm just saying it to describe them. When you come up against people who are really hardcore right-wing, like, this is like a common set of arguments that you have to deal with. Like double standards, hypocrisy, weird, like, complete blind spots. It's just something you have to navigate past as part of your experiment in communication. Because nobody wants your kind here? Well, that's not what I just heard from some other person that said, I believe it was Gonzo that said that trans people get more love than straight people do in America. So which one is it? Does nobody want my kind here, or do we get more love than everybody else? There's a straight ally flag too. My boss always fits about it too, but never bothered to look it up. Yeah, I mean, there's a straight pride flag. It's really like not that big a deal. People make it out like it's the biggest deal in the world because people are fucking really, really tremendously willing to be screwed over by this issue in a way that I just fucking can't get behind, dude. I don't understand it a bit. I don't get where people get off thinking this way. Spooky spooks. What children are you talking about, bro? Because all the studies that have been done on the Dutch approach say that that is the safest way to deal with the issue. That kids that believe they are trans should be allowed to take puberty blockers until such time that they can make the decision for themselves, at which point they should be allowed to go through whichever puberty they feel like they want to go through. People will say that. People will say shit like, oh, there's this mountain of kids. They'll be talking about like 20 fucks. They'll be talking about 20 fucking people that aren't happy about the way their life has turned out and have cornered their early transition as like the crux of that. But I don't think it's ever the crux of it. Not really. What study are you referring to? I'm referencing actual videos of children talking about how they never should have done puberty blockers. Well, how about instead of referencing a few fucking YouTube videos, how about you go reference the many fucking studies that have been done about the Dutch approach? I'm not going to sit here and quote them all to you word for word, nor am I going to list off specific authors and fucking citations, because I'm not a fucking human library with a compendium of text, like textual knowledge stored in my head at all times. What I can do is tell you the name of the strategy, the medical strategy I'm talking about, which is the Dutch approach. If you search studies on the Dutch approach, you will find a fucking variety of them. You'll find studies, you'll find analysis, you'll find abstracts, you'll find, um, oh, what are they called? Basically, a study of studies, cumulative studies. I forget the term for them. It's been a while since I've been in school. Um, it's a very easy thing to look up information on. It's a very easy thing to see how successful it's been in the countries where it's been tried. It's very easy to find a bunch. Like for every fucking example you can show me of somebody who's not happy with it, I can show you two of people who completely are. So not only that, but like, who's to say we can even trust every one of these accounts in a world where there's a lot of money to be made from being anti-trans? Like, who's to say we can even trust all of these accounts? What do you guys think about the fact that Trump is, or not Trump, but the DOJ is now interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell? Ghislaine, whatever her fucking name is. What do you guys think about that? Because I think it's kind of fucking wild that this shit is still being investigated as deeply as it is. Honestly, I kind of thought that Trump would have it killed. I kind of thought that Trump would start firing anybody involved with it, going into damage control mode. Honestly, I thought that was what was going to happen after the first news story. Jesus, get away from me. No. Fucking bug, dude. God damn. What's the square footage of your house? What's the square footage of your mom's asshole, man? Like, what a fucking weird personal question. What a weird, nosy, prying ass question. I think the insiders want Trump out. He's not good for want. I think the insiders want Trump out. He's not good for the economy, and money runs this world, not the person who holds the title of president. I think they're going to use this to run him out of office. That's actually not a bad theory, honestly. You are right. Like, I can't argue with a lot of the principle of what you're saying. I just don't know that that's what this was conceived as. I think that this genuinely did come from a desire of the Trump administration to answer the demands of the MAGA movement, who had been asking, kind of begging, kind of demanding for a while now that Trump do something, anything about this Epstein shit, because he'd been campaigning on it. He'd talked about it. A bunch of his allies had talked about it. I mean, Dan Bongino has been having a fucking meltdown over the last month or whatever over this exact fucking issue, because it's become kind of like a giant stain on the fucking White House and a giant stain on the administration that nothing was coming out about it. And I think that their desire was to do something about that and to make people feel. I think their desire was to assuage people's nerves on it and kind of answer some concerns, but it did none of that. It just inflamed tensions. It left more questions than it answered, and now Trump is in mega damage control mode, but he's doing it publicly. He's doing it publicly, and that's limiting his hand and shit. And that's not the strategy I would have expected out of Trump, honestly. I think Trump might genuinely be in the throes of fucking like early stage dementia or something like that, because his behavior on this issue doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm not even like, I'm honestly glad he's being as dumb about it as he is, because it's going to come back to bite him in his fucking royal orange ass, you know? But if I was an American politician in his position, I don't think this is how I'd be handling it. I don't think I would have mentioned a fucking thing about it. I wouldn't have engaged with the media one time. I certainly wouldn't have made any fucking tweets about it, any kind of posts on any kind of social media about it. Um, I would have been very quietly firing people and forcing them to sign NDAs that cover me for like fucking the remainder of my presidency or something. I would be wheeling and dealing to get this shit covered up if I was an American politician with a bunch of fucked up, corrupt side interests that I've got to protect. Luckily, I'm just a regular ass working class American, so I'll never have to worry about that kind of thing. You see, that's just your thought process on what the error is. Trump is not an American politician. He's an American businessman, and that is playing a political role. That's why we love him so much. So what is the like business advantage of coming out publicly with all this shit? If I was an American businessman in Trump's position, like let's just take him like out of a political role. Let's say he was going through all this shit and he was just a CEO of some kind of major American company. Let's say that he was still in his like business role. I don't like, why would you handle the situation any differently because of that? Like, bad news about your company does nothing but hurt your shares. Bad news about your company does nothing but worsen the public's trust in you, which you're reliant on even as a company to some degree, you know? I mean, I guess it depends on the industry. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me no matter what perspective I think you look at it from. He gloated about how hard the dementia test was in his first term. Did he really? Man, that's not a brag, Donald. This person can't even respond because they know they were wrong. I didn't even see your fucking comment. You've just got like a self-importance complex that makes you think that you're the fucking center of the world and the center of the conversation. Like your comments are the only ones worth reading or responding to. And I'm sorry, I'm not a wizard nor am I a psychologist. This is not an ailment for which I can treat you. But there is help available, my friend, if you want to seek it. Why would a businessman treat things different than the US president? I have no idea. Like, I can't think of one. Like, yeah, I think that, like, they're different positions, but America has been a business since long before Trump was a fucking thing. Is there something out there? Oh, okay. Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, no, they're different, but if you're going to, like, tell me that American businessmen and American presidencies are all that different in terms of, like, um, the structure of the position, they're not. There's a way higher degree of responsibility when it comes to the president, but the way they exercise power, the way they negotiate, the way they engage, I mean, it's all business relationships. It's all business associations and shit like that. It's not like any of it is separate from that in some way. It's not like there's been an American president who's just solely operated on the interest of the public good, at least not since FDR. Who that is, Phoebes? Oh, one of my housemates. See, you would think this person would go and look at my comic and actually reply instead of throwing insults, but yet they can't reply, so they don't. I don't care to reply. That's the difference between you and me. You think that I care about winning an argument with your dumb ass. I don't. You are another fucking plebeian. You are another fucking plebeian. You're not a member of the channel. You haven't super chatted. You haven't done anything to prove your fucking interest in having anything like a real conversation outside of responding with snide comments and like balking at the very idea that I might have a study to back me up or two. I don't find that sort of conversation very much worth engaging in. And so if I happen to catch one of your stupid ass comments, I'll reply to it. But otherwise, when did businessmen have our best interests in mind? Never. 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 They have profit in mind. Spooky seems really disingenuous. They are. That's why they're not repeating their comment. They're just repeating, "Oh, insult, insult, insult." Yeah, I'm insulting you. Because you insult my intelligence when you balk at the very idea of me having studies to back me up. Politicians are in there for life, and they become crooked and self-centered businessmen who are in there for life. They center around the business, which supports the employee. He supports USA. So he supports Americans by doing what exactly? Creating needless trade wars that end up increasing consumer prices, by instituting a bunch of mass deportations that are going to lead to an increase in consumer prices, not to mention a fucking human rights, like a giant human rights scandal that is growing and ongoing. He's pro-America by allowing us to get embroiled in another conflict with Iran. He's pro-America by allowing us to continue to be embroiled in the Ukraine conflict rather than seeking some genuine kind of diplomacy. He's pro-USA by making us look like a bunch of fucking scumbags on the international stage by stepping out of peace talks with Hamas. None of that sounds pro-American to me. That sounds pro-fucking fascist. That sounds pro-business. That sounds pro-Israeli. But it doesn't sound very fucking pro-human life. It doesn't sound very pro-American life. Isn't FDR being the only president to not follow the two-term rule, and if he hadn't died, would have done a fourth problem? Well, here's the thing. The only reason the term limits even exist on the presidency is because of FDR. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people assume that term limits on the presidency is something that stretches back all the way back to the days of our forefathers or some shit, but that's not the fucking case. Term limits on the presidency have only been a thing for like 70, 80 odd years, you know? Before then, before FDR, it was pretty fucking common for president. Well, it wasn't exactly common, but there had been other presidents who had been elected to more than 2 terms. I'll tell her, are you saying I'm pro-Trump? What are you saying now? What's going on? Oh, okay, sorry, my bad. I'm a fucking idiot. Right on. Yeah, I know. Trump is pro-Trump. He's not pro-fucking anything but him, honestly. But his interests happen to coincide quite a bit with the billionaire class interests in general. And I think that is what leads to him being such a destructive force in the presidency. The law was made after FDR, though? Yeah, so I'm getting it wrong, my bad. I thought there had been other presidents besides FDR that had gotten elected more than twice. I retract that because I was wrong. Now that I think about it, I think Lloyd is probably right on this one. So I will retract that because I'm pretty sure I'm wrong on that one. But yeah, no, I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I do believe in term limits, but I would be perfectly fine with a 4-year, like a 4-term limit for the presidency, because like I'm fine with a like well qualified, good politician that is well liked by the people. I'm fine with them staying in for, 8 to 12 years, whatever. Give them enough time to make some real change. But I would also really fucking like it if elections were stacked so that people, like new people, are getting in regularly. I would like it so that things are done in a way that gives people more actual fucking choice. And a big part of that is just going to be increasing education. Like a big part of that is um, reforming education such that people are informed enough to make an informed vote and make an informed decision when they get to the polls. Because as of right now, a lot of people aren't in that position. A lot of people don't know what the fuck they're even trying to vote for when they go to the polls. And that's going to have to change if people are to vote. Because right now, 35% of eligible voters didn't even vote in the 2024 election. Think about that. All of that fucking hullabaloo, all the argumentation, and over a third of the country just stayed home. Over a third. So Trump can do 3? Well, not under our current constitutional limits. But if you listen to what I was saying, Lloyd, I'm saying I would be in support of us changing that sort of thing if we changed some other things in our society along with it. But we're both theory crafting at this point. We're not actually engaging in something that's actually going to happen. This is not something that, like, enough Americans are going to be on board with that we could even talk about getting it passed, right? Like, Lloyd, you and me might be the only two people in this chat that agree that, we should increase the amount of term limits for a presidency. We might have totally different reasons why we want to do it, but neither of us are going to get that through because most Americans are not about that for one reason or another. So I think it's an interesting policy to think about, worth discussing its possible implications in America, but I don't think it's all that interesting in terms of like, this is actually going to happen. We're going to make this happen. No. Not following term limits and longer terms always leads to totalitarians. Well, that's why I'm saying, like, I don't want longer and longer terms, but for certain positions, I would be fine with, like maybe 3 terms would be the right kind of middle ground for a presidency to give them enough time to see the country through a recovery if something bad was happening, or to, like, see the country through, like, a legitimate change in direction when that's needed. I think that, sometimes I just wonder if limiting presidents to 8 years alone doesn't sometimes hinder the progress, right, of an otherwise successful movement. But you also have to consider how little either of the two parties that have ran and won elections in the last 20 years, well, really the last 100 years, if we're going to be honest. You just have to look at the way these parties run and it's their choice not to do anything for the American people. It's their choice not to unite as a party. It's their choice not to form some kind of coalition government of little minority groups within each of their parties in order to fight for causes that they do agree on, or that individual members of the bicameral legislature agree on. This is not something the American people forced these folks into. But it is something our politicians have become prone to, and I think it's something we're going to have to fight against if we're ever going to get any fucking kind of change in America. Your argument is coming off as extend terms if you like them, is what I'm trying to get through. Well, it shouldn't be, because I've said in plain language what I'm advocating for several times. I'm saying I would be fine with us changing the Constitution such that a president can get 3 terms. And I don't think most presidents are going to get more than 2, but maybe a few will. And I would be fine with amending the Constitution if that was like something that people wanted to do. I would be fine with that. So I don't know why it's coming off as like violate it when I like it, but don't violate it when I don't like it. It's going to be a risk. Well, everything is a risk. Life is a risk. Just a genuine question. What is your religion and why? I don't have like a specific religion. I don't consider myself like a deep and like pious adherent to any specific faith or belief, but I do consider myself kind of a crazy hippie that believes in the ultimate power of nature and the wonder of it. And I think that it's easy to see a higher power in that and in that sort of thing. And when people ask me, do you believe in a higher power? I say, well, it's very, very easy to believe in a higher power when you start recognizing that you're just another animal too. Maybe you have a little bit more control over your environment than other animals do, but you don't have that much more. Tornado can still fuck your day up. Horrible tidal wave, earthquake, all kinds of stuff can fuck your day up, even though you're a human. But I don't think that nature has some kind of like intention about it. I don't think that nature is like some kind of like kind and loving God that is going to forgive, but I do think that nature is a bountiful system, a generous system, a system that produces more than it needs, a system of surpluses that every species uses to its advantage. I think it's a self-correcting system we don't have a whole lot of direct control over. And maybe I share some kind of spiritualistic root with some other religion, but I wouldn't be the person to like answer as to the variety or whatever. We need limits on how long people can keep position in the federal government. I'm tired of this out of touch baby boomers not wanting to give their position. No, I agree, Gonzo. That's why I think like if we're gonna talk about term limits, I think like increasing the president's ability to get term limits is way, 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 way less important than getting term limits on Congress, right? Like I I engaged in the idea of longer term limits for presidents because somebody brought it up. But if we're going to talk about what I actually consider important as far as term limits go, I'm going to say term limits on Congress people, term limits on people in the federal government, yeah, but also term limits on Congress people. It should be fucking illegal to run to be in office in Congress for more than 12 years. And there should then be like a 10-year moratorium on any kind of lobbying activity and any kind of gifts or kickbacks from any kind of industry or anything like that. That sort of thing should just be illegal outright. Like, you should not be able to try and woo a politician because you're a fucking public company. I'm sorry, a private company. Well, the White House looks like a retirement home. I would be down with an age limit, like Otello said. I would be down with an age limit. I know 100% that there are like people all over the federal government, not just Donald Trump. There are people all over the federal government who need to fucking retire, man. They need to be gotten the fuck up out of there. Probably should have been gone out of there 15 years ago when they hit 65. They're still kicking around. I mean, there was literally a senator that died in office of old age. That's fucking ridiculous. We're being ran by the fucking tribal elders. And they're not 65 anymore. They're fucking 85, 95, 175. I don't know. Yeah. Like, some of these people are living mummies, bro. They're being, like, propped up in a way that I've never fucking seen looking back on my knowledge of American history. I can't think of a single other time when we were as tightly controlled by octogenarians as we are now. Do you know that Jesus was a real person? Did you know that Jesus was likely 7 or 8 different people whose works were compiled into a single narrative? There's a senator that was missing for months, turned out to be in a nursing home. Yeah, who was that again? Fucking fuck, what was her name? Was that Feinstein? Was that Dianne Feinstein? Hell, I mean, just look at the last president. Look at President Joe Biden. Motherfucker probably had cancer when he got into office. Motherfucker was sundowning when he got into office. And then during the debate, it was literally one long fucking session of Biden sundowning. Literally, I remember during my little debate or whatever you want, or not my little, but the like slightly structured argument I hosted between Paul and Alchemist Oil. At one point, it became cogent to the conversation, and I was like, does this guy need a reminder, you think, Paul? And Paul was like, yeah, I think he needs a reminder, because we were talking about just how old and fucking decrepit he was. And it was funny. It was actually the moment of the most peace and fucking agreement and everything in that entire exchange, right? All three of us were like, he's sundowning. That's indefensible. You know? And so it didn't end up being a point of contention, but it did end up being, you know, the spur of another conversation. But it's just like, god damn, dude. Literally, and when I went to search that, what I typed was Biden sundowning during 2024 debate. That's literally what I typed, and that's what came up. I just played the fucking first thing that came up. I, played it on my own screen for a second, got it to where it needed to be. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. People love to talk about how Biden was too old and now we have actual bags of dust in Congress and stuff. Well, we had actual bags of dust in Congress before, though. Like, we've had actual bags of dust in Congress for a long while. Kay Granger from Texas. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. The 119th Congress, which convened in January 2025, is made up of 535 voting members, 100 senators, and 435 representatives. The median age for House members is 57, while the median age for senators is 65. Holy shit. $57 I can accept, honestly. That's not that bad, now that I think about it. Except $57. That's not so ridiculous. But I really don't think that fucking 65 is a good median age for senators. That means that there is a fucking profound number of senators older than that. That means that there's a profound number of senators that are older than that. God, that's scary. It's a double standard if you know what I mean. At least Joe Biden was a very good politician when he was younger. Trump was the joke of America. Well, Trump really wasn't like the joke of America when he was younger or anything like that. I mean, Trump was he was a reality show dork, you know? Like, he was a rich dude and a fucking land developer and everything, but the reason America really knew him at the time when he became president was on the fucking Apprentice. Before that, he would occasionally appear in the news because he liked to give press interviews. He liked to be out there making news, and he was a rich-ass fucking New York City real estate developer, so of course he was going to be doing that kind of thing. Of course he was going to be out there and trying to get publicity and all this other shit, you know? Like, duh. But, he wasn't like, I don't know, he wasn't seen as some kind of like mock-worthy figure in the 80s and 90s, at least not from what I can tell. It seemed like people took him really fucking seriously in the 80s and 90s as some kind of like billionaire playboy that knew how to fucking move money around and make good deals and that kind of thing. And people didn't really start to see him as less of a serious figure until the 2000s. And he really fucking started to tarnish his legacy with the whole like birther thing that he joined in on. And ultimately his staged presidential announcement was the last straw. NBC cut ties with him. America now looked at him as the racist that wants to be president, and his career in showbiz was over, kid. But he found a new kind of showbiz. He figured out that he didn't need the TV stations to pay him if he could get a loyal band of supporters and followers to pay him. If he could get access to the coffers of one of the richest political parties in America, then suddenly having his own supply of money becomes much less important. And that is what led Donald Trump to fucking seek out the presidency in earnest. And we are still dealing with the fallout from CBS's decision to cut him off to this day. Or NBC or whatever it was. I think it was actually NBC. Is there anything you agree with Trump on? Well, it's becoming increasingly harder to find them, I'll be honest with you, Lloyd, because originally I thought Trump was going to be an anti-war president, and like he hasn't been anti-war in any of the regards I thought he would be. I thought he would honestly have a pretty good chance of finding some kind of peaceful resolution to the Hamas conflict or the Ukraine conflict or like any of these other conflicts that we're involved in, you know, like limited engagements and shit and that kind of thing. It just didn't materialize, right? He talked a big game about either withdrawing from Ukraine completely and at least getting American lives and equipment out of it and out of the mess, but he didn't end up doing that. And now he's kind of redoubled his support for Ukraine. He's supporting Ukraine in way less critical language now, and it's seeming like the weapon shipments are just going to continue, and like diplomacy is no longer on the table as a serious option. And the same thing, I think, has started to evolve in Israel. I just read an article last night about how Israel and the U.S. have stepped out of peace talks with Hamas, which means that the Palestinian people are probably just going to get obliterated as Israel seeks to eliminate every single last Hamas fighter or anyone they think might be connected to them in their endless pursuit for these hostages that they're not even going to be able to find after they kill the last Hamas member. Oh, and I think it's a horrible grinding conflict that I was really hoping that Trump would do something about, because he talked a big game about being an anti-war president. Well, you see how well that went. I do agree with Trump that manufacturing should come back to America, but that's not exactly a very revolutionary thing to say. Populists of both left and right-wing stripes have been saying that for fucking 20 years. So Trump is not unique, and so, well, actually for 30 years. So for 30 years, that line of fucking rhetoric has been a thing. It's not exactly some unique thing to point out. Like, oh, manufacturing needs to come back to America. Yeah, it has since the fucking 70s and 80s. What's your point? And it bothers me, right? Because Trump will use rhetoric like that to justify things like tariffs, which do not bring production back to the United States. What would bring production back to the United States, honestly, is making America a better place to work, making America a better place to live, and making America a better place to build and sell products in. And like some of that's going to involve not making decisions that are purely based on capital, even if you are trying to support the return of capitalist industry. It's funny. Every time capitalism gets in trouble, socialism has to come along and save it, help it limp along to its next checkpoint. Every single time in history when capitalism has started to falter a little bit, socialism has been there to help prop everybody up just long enough for the capitalists to get back to fucking everything. And yet they hate us. How would you bring the manufacturing back? Interesting question. Thank you for asking. So number one, I would nationalize America's railroads, and I would start redeveloping some of these industrial spurs, making them safer to send trains on, making them more modern and maintained. I would start a government program whereby places that are I'm having a brain fart. Places that are good candidates for bringing manufacturing back. So old factories and big warehouse kind of buildings that are in the industrial park and connected in some way to the railroad, or connected in some way to roads that would allow it to transport the whatever good it's producing to and fro. Um, a program buying up those buildings and leasing them out at lower rates to allow not just to foster like companies that already have, manufacturers in the U.S. to build more here and to bring more back over here, but also to help kind of encourage people that are like on the small business level and maybe have some kind of small machine shop or something like that, to expand their business and do even more things and build even more, right? um, I would massively increase the support of unions in this country. I would like reform the NLRB so that like nobody is in there that's like automatically taking the side of the company. I would make it so that unions have a genuine chance at organization and meaningful change here in America. I would increase the support of that massively. Probably start like some kind of like tax funded universal grant that can be given to union movements when it's needed to help workers on a strike line or something like that. All of these things would help to make America a more competitive place by introducing more skill and interest into the American workforce, by making people want to stay at a factory for a long time, by making people interested in factory work again. Um, the lower costs that like the cost offset from these government owned manufactories, well, the land and buildings themselves being owned by the government but leased out at a way below market rate kind of thing, that would offset the cost to these companies of increasing the wages and benefits that they would be hiring through increased union presence. Man, it is hot. What do you think about ICE? I think that ICE is a fucking authoritarian organization that is currently being used to do mass deportations of Hispanic people all across America. And many of them are being arrested without like any kind of fucking crime having been committed. And many of them are being arrested despite the fact that they are on a naturalization path, or they have been already naturalized. Some of them are being subjected to denaturalization proceedings. Trump is at war with Central American people living in America. Trump is at war with these people because his people, his base, if you will, have told him that he has to be at war with these people because they're at war with them. Why are they at war with them? Because they were told by news organizations like Fox News and talking heads like Tucker Carlson that that's who they needed to be afraid of, that that was who was responsible for their stagnant wages, that that's who was responsible for the fact that their unions have gone away and become rotten and become less useful for them, that that was who was responsible for making their pension plan turn into a 401k and then making their 401k subject to bad marketplaces. These people have been told, for decades now that Mexican people are to blame for every ill in America. Every economic ill in America, these people are told to blame Mexicans for. Waste, fraud, and abuse in the welfare system, blame Hispanic people. Low wages, blame Hispanic people. Not a lot of jobs, blame Hispanic people. Not a lot of skilled jobs or low skilled jobs, blame Hispanic people. Healthcare costs too high, blame Hispanic people. Every economic issue on the planet now is justified by saying, oh, well, it's just the Hispanic people. Deal with them when we've dealt with the problem. It's classic Nazi, fascist scapegoating. Do you at least agree that immigration needs some control, that the law some have broke is illegal immigration? Yeah, I do. But my problem is that, like, okay, yes, I agree that they've broken a law. I just, like, I'm not going to say that there shouldn't be any regulation on immigration. I think it's good to, like, know, who's coming into your country vaguely. And I think it's good to make sure that they've got all their shots and immunizations and make sure they're not bringing in some kind of disease if it's from a fucking country that's going through a pandemic or something like that. I think basic safeguards are important. I think there's a reason why some immigration law exists. But I think America has made it needlessly complicated for a country that built itself on immigration to immigrate here. We've made it to where if you're rich, you can come here just fine. Even if it's just rich for your country, you can probably come here just fine because, there's less barriers for you. You can afford it. But if you can't, if you just need to come to America the way people came over on Ellis Island, the way people came over for 100 years before we enacted a bunch of immigration reforms that made it harder. If you try to come like that, you're no longer welcome. There's no longer an easy way for you to just come to the border and say, I want to be an American and get paperwork that helps you document your fucking process. And there should be. So yes, some immigration control, 100%. Do we need this much? Do I, as an American citizen, need to be stopped and threatened with a search just because I'm driving down Interstate 10? Because that's what it ends up doing. Like, do you not realize, like, this has effects that are outsized from just the single effect of haunting Hispanic people? We can agree that the government makes things needlessly complicated. That's why we need smaller government, though. No, we need better government. Smaller government is not a goal to be pursued. It's a description that can describe bad or good governance. And people, for some reason, I've never met a person that really advocates for strong governance in all areas or weak governance in all areas. Usually people are a little hypocritical about it, which is why I say better governance. I don't say bigger or smaller, I say better, because I bet there are a few areas where you probably want bigger government. Let me just ask you, maybe I'm wrong. Let me ask you, let me see, what was your name? Lloyd. Um, do you support the military, Lloyd? Let me just ask you that. I'm not passing judgment on you if you do. I'm not a complete pacifist, I may think we're fucking up on the world stage right now, but I think that we've been based a number of times using tanks, planes, bombs, missiles, and other various fun implements that go boom, I'm not completely anti-military. I just want to know your opinion on it. Do you support the military? I know you're ignoring my messages. I'm trying to engage in a specific conversation with one person. I'll go back to your messages in a minute if you really want me to. Or you can just repeat them in a second. Did you know that ICE has led multiple investigations into sex trafficking and recently rescued many people who were victims of sex trafficking? Did you know that the Gestapo would occasionally stop a German woman from being mugged on the streets of Berlin? Yeah, I don't think the fact that a fascist organization occasionally does a good thing exempts it from the fact that it's a fascist organization. Fascist organizations remain fascist even if you, make them look a little better. I support the people who signed up, but support an isolation-only use if attacked. Well, at least you recognize the responsibility of yourself to have a not super war hawkish kind of policy if you're going to claim to be for smaller government. Because a lot of times I will find this hypocrisy, which you thankfully did not offer me, and I appreciate that. But a lot of times I'll hear this hypocritical bullshit about how, well, yeah, of course I support the military, and it's like, well, how the fuck can you support the military and support a smaller government? Because the military-industrial complex is all about fucking increasing that shit. It's all about, broadening its control over the American people and the American economy. But I also think it's interesting, right? Like, fuck, what was I gonna say? Cool breeze hit, and now I'm distracted. It's not occasional, they do it all the time. Do what? What's going on? Oh, Spooky Spooks is still being the center of the world. Gotcha. I know you need attention, Spooky Spooks, but that kind of thing makes me not want to give it to you, you know? The fact that I know you want it makes me want to give it to you less. Spooky's still salty they got called out for yapping nonsense and is still hate watching. Oh, they'll be hate watching for the rest of my life. I've earned a hate watcher in Spooky. Spooky subbed. I have sub mode on. Spooky subbed. Spooky's gonna be along for a long they're gonna be around for a long time. And I'm glad. I love people who disagree with me. I love people who like fighting with me. Just because I don't want to answer every one of Spooky's inane questions doesn't mean I don't like them in the chat, you know? Small government also means less oversight of state institutions, not very checks and balances of you to say. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. Small government is like a description that can be applied to bad and good governance. I don't hate you, the fuck. Well, I'm not, like, I don't know that, obviously. It's called being quick and witty. I don't actually know your actual emotional state moment to moment, you know? You can agree though, Spooky, that you're not watching me because you agree with everything I say. You're watching me because you are fascinated by how much you disagree, right? I mean, if not, if there's some other reason, feel free to let me into it, I guess. Here in my dingy room with my pajamas on, adding more shit to my wish list on Amazon. Send to my home address a cornucopia of shit to distract me from agoraphobia. I dream of Hollywood and of a better life, but until that day. You have sisters? I do, actually, yes. I've got quite a few sisters. I'll beat up my wife. Dun da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dun da da dun dun da 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 dun. I will knock out all the fucking teeth. I wrote a masterpiece of gothic fiction. It's sold to copy, so I face eviction. Please pay my rent for me and pay my legal fees, or I will accuse you of attacking my family. This state of misery, such an inspiring place, it moves me to punch my wife in the face. What do you think of the Abrahamic words? I don't remember off the top of my head what the Abrahamic words consisted of. I remember reading about them recently, but I didn't retain a lot of it, sadly. I got to read something several times before I fully fucking retain it. I don't know if it's just my fucking ADHD or what, but that's one of those things I've got to reread. The name is familiar. I know it's some kind of. I think it's got something to do with the governance of religious sites in Israel and the surrounding territory. I think, but I could be totally wrong. Many creators will also link you to more sources. Oh yeah, true. I was saying that ICE doesn't work to find sex trafficking victims every once in a while. They do it all the time. that doesn't change the fact that they are complicit in a mass deportation effort that is meant to harass Hispanic people regardless of citizenship status. I don't care if they're doing it every day. Like, you don't understand, bro. Evil people do this. This is how evil institutions work. This is not some pattern you've identified with ICE that's unique to ICE. This is how evil institutions work. Billionaires do it all the time, all day long. Every single time you see a billionaire donating to some philanthropic cause, every single time you see a billionaire donating a bunch to a hospital or some bullshit like that, they're getting something out of that. That's a fucking exchange of whatever. Who knows what it's an exchange of, but it's an exchange every fucking time. ICE can't even find kids in their own care. I know. But good luck convincing some people of that. It's a peace treaty Trump brokered between the Saudis and others in the Middle East that still holds today through the current climate. Yeah, I'm thinking of a completely different thing than Lloyd. I'm sorry. You've actually been kind of Johnny on the spot today with the quick facts, so I appreciate that, even if we do disagree. And you've been cordial despite the fact that I'm kind of a cunt, so thank you. So billionaires should never donate? Did I fucking say that? What I said is that evil institutions offset their evil by trying to act like they're doing good sometimes. It's not a unique thing, and it doesn't change the fact that they're evil. If we decide to stop holding people accountable because they decide how they're going to offset their evil, then we allow people to set the narrative that it's not society that determines what is good and what is bad and what is good, but rather billionaires and people able to set the narrative about what is, which might be closer to the truth, but I don't think that's how things should work. I think that popular opinion should determine the direction of policy in our country. I don't think it should be billionaire interests. I don't think it should be the whim of fucking rich people. What flavor is in your vape? This is tropical fruit, Lost Mary. What do you think about crypto? I was really skeptical of it at first, but honestly, it seems like a lot of them have seen growth and shit, so I don't know. I guess it's a technology that's here to stay. What effect it's going to have on the world at large, I think we have yet to see. I think it's going to be a while before we know exactly what effect it's going to have, if any, but, it's not a technology I write completely off the table. I'm not one of these people that says, crypto bros, because I understand there are plenty of people who've made plenty of money off of crypto. It's just something you got to be careful with, and you shouldn't invest stupid amounts of money in it. You should treat it with even more care than you treat the stock market, but it's not something that's completely volatile. That's a complete waste of time. You just shouldn't be an idiot about it, but you shouldn't be an idiot about penny stocks either. You shouldn't be an idiot about stock market fucking day trading and bullshit like that either. Critical thinking is truly a gift I'll never take for granted again. Well, you should always thank your parents and your school system and whatever mentors you had for the fact that you can critically think if you're capable of that art form, because it's something that so few people are capable of these days, and it's something that is critically missing from our society. But no, my argument is not billionaires should never donate. I think that billionaires should donate and should stop supporting and fighting for the continuation of industries that kill the planet. Honestly, I'm a market socialist, which means I want to be taken out of the hands of the marketplace, but I'm fine with there being luxury brands. I'm fine with there being entertainment brands. I'm fine with there being consumerist fucking bullshit all over this country. I understand that that's a part of our culture, and that if we ever get over that, it's going to be in a long time, and I'm not going to have much to do with that advocacy because it's going to take a lot longer than my anti-consumerist ass on my own can do, right? So I want a world where people can fucking continue to engage in that, because even I like to engage in it sometimes. I'm a good red-blooded American like anybody else. I like to go into a mall sometimes and check out all the little consumer goods. I like to sometimes drive through a city with a bunch of horribly laid out car dependent stroads and look at the crazy lights and the big billboards and the advertisements and the gaudy fucking shit. I like that, as much as any other person, but we could do with less of it, not like number one. And number two, like we would be a lot more capable of engaging in that marketplace and engaging in that economy if we weren't all fighting for our fucking lives when it comes to our rent and our fucking grocery bills and our tax bills. So make the fucking rich pay their fucking fair share of taxes, ease the burden on the working class, introduce some price controls on some basic necessities, and nationalize some basic necessities like housing, and let the fucking market figure out the rest. I'm pretty sure everybody would be fine with paying $200 or $300 more for a PlayStation 5 if they were paying $2,000 less a month just for the privilege of living. There should be more of a cap on how much an individual or an individual organizing body can contribute campaign funds. Oh, 100%. We need like a $5,000 campaign donation limit or something like that. No single fucking donor should be able to donate more than $5,000 to any fucking candidate for any reason, no matter how big or small the donor is. Whether that's a company, whether that's... And I think it might even be a good idea to introduce like a rule where companies themselves can't donate. Like, I don't think companies themselves should be able to donate to fucking political campaigns, period. I think that, in fact, we should track the amount of donations received from employees of these companies. And once that limit is reached, then all donated political funds after that have to be returned. I think that that would be a really good policy. Well, it's only fair, right? We take them all from here and then have vacations in that place. It's like a rich person pretending to be homeless for a day because they have never been in that situation before. Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. Do you believe that anyone can be racist? Yes. Some people prefer the language prejudice when you're talking about a person of color being racist towards a white person or another person of color, but I don't think that I personally, maybe I'm wrong on this, I'm willing to be, but I personally don't recognize why there should be a distinction. Maybe it just hasn't been explained to me in the right language, but to me, how is racism and prejudice all that different if you're talking about the act of discriminating against somebody, discriminating against someone on the basis of their color of the skin, right? Like, regardless of what the two interacting colors may be. Like I said, maybe I just haven't received a good explanation on it, but it's one of those things that people accuse me of being not woke over, The fact that I'm like, yeah, I mean, a black person can be racist to a white person, and people be like, well, no, it's prejudice if it doesn't involve institutionalized power, and I'm like, that seems like a distinction without a difference, because you can have cultural power without having institutionalized power or whatever. Like, the KKK doesn't have a lot of institutionalized power, but it's got a fuck ton of cultural power in areas where the KKK operates heavily. Literally no one thinks black people can't be racist. That's absurd. It is genuinely something you used to hear in the Tumblr space and on far left spaces. You will hear this exact argument. This is not something I'm making up, Pig Mercy. I promise that. I promise. This is not something I'm making up. And that's how the argument goes. That if you're talking about a person of color being racist to another person of color, or being racist towards a white person, that it's not proper to say racism because that implies institutionalized power. Instead, you should use the term prejudice because that implies the act of discrimination without implying institutionalized power. But my argument has always been that institutionalized power is not the only kind of power, and it's not the only kind of meaningful power either. And that ultimately it doesn't matter much which one is which if you're able to exercise power unjustly over other people on the basis of their skin tone. Yeah, exactly. Racism is prejudice plus power. Yeah, that's the argument you'll hear. But, I think racism is hating on somebody because they're black, or hating on somebody because they're Mexican, or hating on somebody because they're white, I don't think it's necessarily good for conversation. Now, I will also say it's not as harmful to do some of these things than it is others, right? Like, a white person is way less likely to take actual offense to being made fun of for being white than a black person is to being made fun of for being black. And not only that, you're not helping to uphold age-old, like, wrong fucking stupid stereotypes about a specific racial group when you're making fun of, say, white people. And that's a lot of the reason behind society's different reaction to these two things, because they pose different dangers. Haven't seen you in a while. Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? I'm a loony leftist, and I think racism is racism. I mean, I'm the exception too, Spooky Spooks. So there you go. I've had a lot of people who think they can't be racist. Well, yeah. No, I mean, like, that's the thing. I recognize that as a person who grew up in Mississippi, in a, place where the Civil War is a pretty big topic of discussion, you know, I recognize that I was probably exposed to some racist ideas throughout my childhood, and I recognize that my parents might have had some subtle kind of tendencies one way or the other that I didn't necessarily pick up on. I mean, I would say my parents are pretty anti-racist, like, knowing them now, but, I know that, like, deeply culturally ingrained racism doesn't go away easy, and I know that it pops up in weird ways, and I'm willing to recognize that that's something that I have to fight against sometimes, Like, the fact that I sometimes want to crack a racist joke or whatever is, like, evidence of that influence. But I don't think that that makes someone a forlorn or unforgiven or unforgivable or whatever person. I think it's just something that you have to admit if you're a white person living in America, and especially in an area that has dealt with a lot of historical racism and stuff like that. Something you kind of have to deal with, more or less. Would you rather have explosive... What? The KKK is dead, basically living in the South. Yeah, they are no threat overall. I used to live in an area of the Midwest where there was, like, active Klan activity. So, no, the Klan is not dead. It might be effectively dead now, I don't know. The last time I saw a Klan flyer was, admittedly, like 7 or 8 years ago. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go. It's real hot out here, and I need to get back to my life. So, thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate everybody who hung out and liked the stream and super chatted and did all that good stuff. If you want to see more of these, make sure you stay subscribed and hit the little bell, because that will help you stay abridged of our goings on as time goes on. And yeah, thank you guys. See you around.